What if I told you there was more to the story behind game-changing events? Get ready for my new podcast, That Moment with Damon John. Every Tuesday on the Black Effect Podcast Network, we'll jump into the personal stories of some of the most influential people on the planet, from business moguls and celebrities to athletes and artists. Join me every Tuesday for That Moment with Damon John on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you go to get your podcasts.
Brought to you by Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment made to chill.
Are you hungry for the inside scoop of women's soccer?
I'm Sam Mewis.
And I'm Lynn Williams.
And we're professional soccer players, best friends, and the hosts of Snacks, the only women's soccer podcast hosted by active players that gets into the most recent news, gossip, and fun of the NWSL, the women's national team, and the delightful, delicious world of snacks.
It's a weekly show that features great guests from the world of women's soccer, recaps and previews of the biggest matches, and the two of us hanging out with you.
Listen to Snacks on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. This month we're talking about adventurers, women who refuse to be confined. They push the boundaries of where a woman could go and how she could get there. Today we're talking about the first Asian woman to swim across the English Channel. Let's talk about Arati Saha. Arati Saha learned how to swim on the banks of the Ganges River. She was born in 1940 to a middle-class family in Kolkata. Her mother died when she was around 2 years old, so Arati was raised with help from her extended family. As a child, she would often bathe at Chompatala Got, where wide stone steps led directly into the river. Arati took to the water like a fish. Her father noticed and enrolled her in a swimming club. There, she caught the eye of Sachin Nag, an Indian swimming superstar. Almost immediately, Arati's career in the water took off. She won her first gold medal in 1946 at just 5 years old. Her event that day was the 110-meter freestyle, 4 laps in a modern-sized pool. Over the next few years, Arati kept winning. She became known as a swimming prodigy, unstoppable. In 1948, she won 2 silvers and a bronze at the national championship. She was 8. In 1951, she broke the all-India record in the 100-meter breaststroke and set 3 new state-level records in freestyle and backstroke. She was 10. The Helsinki Olympics were on the horizon, and in 1952, Arati represented India in the 200-meter breaststroke at just 11 years old. Arati had reached a milestone that, for most people, is the height of their career, all before becoming a teenager. When Arati returned to India, a new goal began to take shape. In 1950, an annual race across the English Channel had begun. 20 swimmers from around the world clamored to test their endurance in what was the Mount Everest of swimming. The channel lies between England and France and is 21 miles long if a person were to swim in a straight line from one coast to the other. But they almost never do. Rough currents, bad weather, and icy temperatures can knock swimmers off course for miles. Roaming pods of jellyfish sting your arms and legs, and choppy waves can make you seasick while you're swimming in the sea. In 1958, when Arati was 11, the race across the channel had 2 historic finishers. Greta Anderson became the first woman to win the race. In second place was Brojan Dash, the first Asian person to swim across. Arati was inspired. She was an Asian woman who loved swimming and lived for a challenge. If Greta and Brojan could cross the channel, she could too. While a team began fundraising, Arati began training. There weren't a lot of bodies of water in India that mimicked the English Channel, so she improvised. She did long swims in the Ganges. At one point, she swam for 8 hours in a pond in Deshbandhu Park, while fans watched from the shore. The next time, she went for 16 hours. In August of 1959, the time had finally come. Arati arrived in France along with 57 other swimmers from around the world. They gathered in Cap Gris-Nez, the closest point in France to England. It was 1 a.m., the dead of night. Waves lapped at the beach's rocky edge. Arati was ready, but the pilot of her launch boat was not. He was 40 minutes late. Arati had missed a key window of easy swimming. The water had turned rough. By 11 a.m., Arati had swum more than 40 miles. She was just 5 miles from the English coast, but a strong current blew in. She was stuck. 5 hours later, she'd only made it 2 more miles inland. She wanted to keep going. She'd come so far, and she was so close, but the boat's pilot insisted. Arati was pulled out of the water. Her race was done. But Arati refused to give up. She stayed in Europe determined to swim again, and she did. A little over a month later, on September 29th, Arati set out again from Cap Gris-Nez. She swam for 16 hours and 20 minutes and covered 42 miles to emerge on the other side of the channel on an English beach, hoisting an Indian flag. Arati had become the first Asian woman to swim across the English Channel. Later that year, Arati married her manager, Dr. Arun Gupta. In 1960, she became the first woman athlete to win a Padma Shri, one of the highest civilian awards in India. But after the fanfare around her swim died down, life became normal for Arati. She was only 20 years old. She had a whole life to live away from the spotlight. She went to school, had a daughter, and worked for a railroad. She died in 1994 when she was just 53 years old. All month, we're talking about adventurers. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Talk to you tomorrow.
Are you passionate about making a positive impact on a child's life? Then listen to this. Alpha Best Education, a national after-school program provider, is searching for site coordinators and group leaders in your area. At Alpha Best, enjoy career growth, no weekend work, part-time benefits, and deep tuition discounts for team members. Apply now with a quick 3-minute application. Just go to alphabest.org/careers. That's alphabest.org/careers. Make a difference. Join Alpha Best Education.
Are you hungry for the inside scoop of women's soccer?
I'm Sam Mewis.
And I'm Lynn Williams.
And we're professional soccer players, best friends, and the hosts of Snacks, the only women's soccer podcast hosted by active players that gets into the most recent news, gossip, and fun of the NWSL, the women's national team, and the delightful, delicious world of snacks.
It's a weekly show that features great guests from the world of women's soccer, recaps and previews of the biggest matches, and the two of us hanging out with you.
Listen to Snacks on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade. Starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.